Hello, welcome to the Jellyfish Journals. My name is Susie, and if you've been following my channel at all, then you probably recognize that this is my current reading journal for 2025. I am going to tell you guys, I am really proud of myself, first of all, for sticking with it. Not that I'm somebody who gives up on things a lot, but as somebody with an ADHD brain, I have my toes going in 100 different things. Right now, I also have a diamond painting going. I'm reading 3 books. I'm working on a jigsaw puzzle. I'm almost done with a coloring page I'm working on. I've got this journal, multiple journals. I mean, it really does tend to be overload. And sometimes with too much or with my ADHD brain, I will get hyperfixated on something and stick with that. So I might stop journaling for months and go and work on puzzles for months instead until I'm bored with that and move on. I have stuck with this faithfully. I also can confidently say that since starting this last November, now everything in here is for 2025, but I started setting this up last November. I honestly wasn't sure if a year later I would still be talking about this journal, and I'm really happy that I am. And not only that, but I'm also thinking, what do I want in next year's journal? Now, if you've watched my channel, you have seen my theme. You probably heard in my voice already. I am so excited about my theme. I am doing a space jellyfish theme for 2026. You are welcome to go and check out that video. I am so excited in that video. You are going to think I am so ridiculous. And the truth is, maybe a little bit, but I think the whole point of this is for it to be therapeutic. I think it's to bring joy, and it is. It does. And so I'm not stopping yet. But I do want to say that even though I've stuck with this all year, even though I still love the practice of keeping a reading journal, I have been giving a lot of thought as the year has gone on, and especially in the last couple months. What do I want in my next journal? So what's working in this journal and what's not working in this journal? Or what's working but maybe needs to be tweaked just a little bit. And so I just kind of want to spend a few minutes. I want to flip through and talk about my thoughts on some of the things that are working and some things that are not. I kind of want to talk about the purpose behind some of these spreads, as well as some of the changes that I'm planning to make for next year. And the idea is that I'm hoping within the next couple weeks, I am ready to start doing some reading journal planning with you, and you will start seeing me set up my spreads in my 2026 reading journal. But my hope is that showing this first, for those of you that have been following along, you won't wonder, well, why isn't she doing it that way anymore? And what happened to that spread she did? I liked that spread. Or, why is she doing that again? I hated that she did that. I mean, I just kind of want you to know my mindset behind the decisions I'm making. And obviously keep in mind, since my 2026 journal has not been finalized yet, it is possible that I may change my mind on some of these, and I may either decide that I don't want to take the time to think up anything new, or I might just want to give it another year before I make larger changes. So with all of that, let's go ahead and let's just kind of break down predominantly the yearly pages. So everything at the beginning of this notebook that documents my yearly reading journal for 2025. So starting off in the beginning, of course, I'm going to have a title page with my name. This is where I get to have just fun decorating. Don't have to spend too much time worrying about how much space I'm using up. I probably am going to decorate a little bit on this side as well, because I think that's fun. And I probably will still cover up the company logo. I adore Archer and Olive. I am a huge fan. It's pretty much all I'm asking for my birthday and Christmas. But I am just somebody, I don't want to see company names on everything. I don't buy clothes with company names on them. I don't like it when my shoes are overly company named. I don't know. It's this weird thing I've always had my whole life. So I do cover that up, but it is no shade to Archer and Olive, because I will shout from the rooftops where I get my journals. I am going to do a 2026 reading page for sure, like a reading journal intro. I think it's just a really fun way to kind of state the purpose. I'm also going to do another library card page. So I haven't decided yet if I'm going to do it on this brown paper, probably not brown, but a paper, different color paper. But I like how it's a way for me to keep track of who's got my books. I don't mind loaning books. I love loaning my books, but I just like to know where they are. So I like this system. I think this has worked really well, but especially on the back, this is where I've kept my swatch chart for all of these colors that you're going to see me use in these pages. And that has probably been the most useful tool ever. So I will definitely be having this kind of spread again. I debated doing a quote page again because I don't use this page very much, but I've decided I am going to do a quote page. I'm tying it more to my theme than I am to the act of reading. This one is very much about the act of reading. It's a quote from Lisa C., who is one of my all-time favorite authors. I had a goal to read most of her books this year. I'm on track to do that. I think there's only one more I was planning to get through this year. And so I'm on track for that. But I love that this is where I was mentally when I started this journal. And I like that a quote page gives me an opportunity to just hold on to something that was important to me at the moment. So I'm really excited about my new quote for the year. I think it involves more about like who I am as a person, and it connects to jellyfish. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but it's something about jellyfish and connecting or whatever. But it'll go with my theme really well, whereas this one isn't so much about the theme. And it's definitely going to give me more opportunity to decorate, which is obviously the fun part. For my 25 and 25, I know that next year it should be 26 and 26. I have already decided I'm going to make it a 25 and 26 page. The reason for that is I don't want to keep putting pressure on myself to read more and more predetermined books, if that makes sense. I like that this was enough that it was about 2 books a month that were predetermined, and anything else I read that month was just because I wanted to. And I worry that if I keep increasing the number to match the year, then at some point, the amount of physical books, because these are always physical books on my current TBR, on my shelves in my basement right next to me, I want to leave some flexibility. I want to leave some room for what I feel like reading. And this felt like a very good number to me. 2 books a month that are predetermined. I get through those. I get through my challenge book. And then whatever else I have time for is just because I felt like it. So you will see in my new journal, it will say 25 and 26. I'm not sad about that or sorry about that whatsoever. I think the other thing too, truthfully, this takes up a lot of space. This is a B5 journal. I always mess up and call it a B6, but it is a B5. And I like the size of these books. I have fun making the titles look like the titles of the books that I've been reading. And I just fear that more books on here, it will lose that kind of aesthetic. And I don't want that to happen. I am planning to have a reading log again for next year. It's going to basically be the same format. I don't think I changed anything about the format. It'll do title, author, and rating. I think I'm doing that the same. It's going to be one line for each book. That worked out really well. And it's just going to be this one little Dutch door in the middle. I think I could be wrong. I think my plan is to move it up and have the title of the page at the bottom just to change it up a little bit. I don't want my new book to feel too much like this book. But I think that's the only thing that's different, really. I have it listed for 140 books. I feel like I'm on pretty good track for that. I feel like I might have read 10 in October, which this has not been updated with October yet. Just a heads up. Today is November 1st. I'm filming this now, but I'm going to sit down later today and figure out all the things that need to go in here before I film that update. But I was at 110 books at the end of September. So another 10. I mean, really, if I read 10 more books in November and 10 more in December, then I filled it up. If not, I can always make another little door that opens up this way. You'll see on my new books log, I've had to do that multiple times already because I double spaced those lines, but I think I'm planning to just keep it at 140 because that's doable for me without making me feel pressure. I don't care if I don't fill all these lines. If I end up at 100 and if I ended up, well, I guess I've already read 10 more, but if I read one book and I read 121 books and all of this is empty, I don't care. I'm fine with that. Then I had my reading challenge page from Storygraph, and I signed up for this. I loved this. This was another way that I was able to attack or knock down some of the books on my TBR, and I'm waiting for them to release their new reading challenge. So I like this layout. I haven't decided if I'm going to do it the same way for next year or not. I want to see if they have a similar challenge first before I think that through. So having said that, when I do start releasing my videos for my 2026 reading journal setup, you will see I do not go in page order. I will decorate whatever inspiration has struck for that spread. By the end, it will all be done. But if I don't get to this until December 31st, so be it. For Storygraph, their 2025 reading challenge was just one book a month, and they gave a little prompt. So, for example, this had to have a book with an image inside of it. This had to be a standalone. June was a book about books. And what I did was I set this up. I wrote the prompt for each one. And then it's hard to tell now because there's only 3 months left of the year. Like I said, I have not updated October yet. But I printed all the covers in black and white so I would remember which books I'd already chosen for the reading challenge. And then as I read them and I updated each month, I would glue the color cover down on top of it. So that's why, because this threw me off. I just started reading Animal Farm today. And because I had to read the shortest book on my TBR, which at the time when I picked this, it was Animal Farm. And I was like, wait, I thought the pig was pink, but it is, but not until I read it. Then he'll be a pink pig. I loved this challenge. I'm really happy with it. I'm happy to do this again because I like that it forced me to dig through the books I already own and kind of, again, predetermined. So not to sound like I'm contradicting myself, but I guess that goes along with this. I already predetermined these 25 books, and these were books that were either being released this year, like Sunrise on the Reaping, or books that I was just dying to read, like Arabian Nights. So these were books I picked because I did not want to wait any longer to read them. These were books that I picked because they fit the theme or the prompt for the challenge. So still waiting on Storygraph to release that. Then we have my book bracket spread. I have already set this up in my new journal. I love this format. This works for me. So each month, so I think it went January, February, March, April, and so on. Yeah, duh. Each month I picked my top read for the month. And then out of those two, I'm going to put the winner there. So then it'll be out of 2 books from these, then I'll choose a winner and so on until there's the top book of the year. I left a little extra spot for my favorite book. And now this is going to sound a little bit weird, but I did learn from 2024 that sometimes if there are 2 books that I just absolutely love that I read in the same month, only one of them gets this slot. And the other book is just sort of forgotten. And that happened to me last year. I don't remember the 2 books, but I know one of them was LMNOP. I love, love, love that book. I recommend it to everybody, but I didn't realize that till the end of the year, how much that book resonated with me. And so in 2025, I decided to have a special spot for my favorite book or a standout book that maybe didn't make the top book of the year. I know that probably sounds a little weird. It makes sense in my head. Just in case I'm looking back at everything, because I do love my top read from last year. It was The Butterfly Garden. That was my winner. But LMNOP, I mean, if I had to pick between the 2 of them, I don't think I could. So I think the only difference with my current spread is I think I moved my favorite book down here and maybe the book bracket up here. But again, just to add some variety. Some of these spreads are staying, but the format is changing. So I'm definitely going to do a books read spread again, just a graph of how many books I read each month. I had it go up to 18 because I'm a teacher, so I'm off in the summers, and I wasn't really sure how many books I would get through in a month during the summer. I have not hit more than 14 books in a month, which I know is a lot. I'm not saying it's not a lot, but I just didn't hit 18. So I don't know if that's realistic, and I don't know if I even want that space next time. I also had this pages read graph, and kind of similarly, the most pages I've read any month was in January. I think I read 500 or 5,300 pages, but I read some chonkers that month. I read The Bee Sting and some other really hefty ones. But again, this feels like a waste of space to me. And so I can't remember what I've decided or if I've decided, but there's a chance that both of these pages are going to be smallified, downsized, and they'll share one spread now. So I'm still working on that, but I just think these did not need to be as big as they are. Dates finished. This is probably my least favorite chart in the whole thing. I thought it would be kind of cool to see if there are any patterns in my reading. Do I finish a lot of books at the beginning of the month or the end of the month? What's the format that I finish them in? I'll be honest, I really don't care. This means nothing to me. I'm filling it out because it's here. I've set the space aside for it, but this is not happening in my new journal at all. Don't like it, not doing it. The year published spread, I do love this spread. So I created this garden, and there's a key at the top. And so whatever year the book was published in, I color a flower according to that color. Now, I love this idea and I love this spread, but one thing I realized is that no matter what I did, whether I dug deeper into my Kindle or I went to a used bookstore, it didn't seem to matter. It seemed like everything I was reading fell in this category. And I purposefully do not go to the stores looking to find books that are in a different category to make this different colors. I really truly choose books that sound interesting to me. Not even that they're super popular. I read a lot of books that people have not heard of or very small groups of people have heard of. But it was a little not so satisfying that almost every book I read fell in a 2020 to 2025 bracket. The funny thing is, some of these brackets span 19 years. So this one actually I'm looking at is 29 years. This one is 49 years. And so even with that, like this 1900 to 1949, that's 49 years that a book could have been published in. And I don't think I've had a single one of those. This one is a 5-year span, and most of my spread is that. So this is going to change. But I am going to still do a year published because I think it's kind of fun. My bookshelfie is changing. I don't want this to look the same anymore. On this spread, what I do is first of all, I draw it out, fill it up with books. Then I go through and I first write the titles of all of the 25 and 25. So all of these books that I know for sure I want to read this year, I wrote the titles just randomly on the books. Then I looked at my reading challenge for the year, and I went through and I randomly wrote those titles on the books. So that way I knew those books were going to get read, therefore those books would get colored. I'm going to do the same system in 2026. My bookshelf will just look different. The other books that I filled in were just the books that had been on my TBR the longest. So once I'd filled in my 25 and 25 and my reading challenge books, then I just pulled up my Storygraph app. I looked at the books that had been added to my TBR the earliest, so they'd been there the longest, and I just filled in the rest of the books with those. I think I want to say it's like 70 books here because this is only for physical TBR books. I want to look at this at the end of the year. I want to see all the books colored and say, yes, I made a dent in my TBR. Now, I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty sure I've bought way more books, physical books, than I've read. So I don't know if it's fair to say I've made a dent in my TBR. I've probably made an out dent in my TBR. But at least I'll know I am reading what I own. That makes me feel good. Genres read will still be in my new reading journal. Again, I'm going to do it a little different. The biggest problem I noticed is that I read a lot more genres than I thought I did. So I picked the 8 genres that I read the most. But then somebody would recommend a book, or I'd pick up a book that wasn't really fantasy, it was more dystopia. Or I'd pick up a book that was more horror than thriller. And I found myself adding to this throughout the year to make sure those genres were accounted for. So I'm definitely rethinking this, and going to add that in a little bit differently to my new journal so that I'm still documenting the journal or genres read, but not like this. The other thing I didn't like is because I know I read a lot of thrillers, each of these boxes represents 2 books. But on this side, which looks like the exact same chart, each of these boxes represents 1 book. Doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you're filling this out every month and you color, sometimes you forget. And sometimes you color 1 box for each book here, or 2 boxes per book here, or 2 books per box here, and it just gets confusing. It's even confusing to say it. My new books acquired, I want to do a chart like this again, but kind of the same problem. So I had Ark and Goodwill together. I had Amazon was here by itself. But then I started finding books on Facebook Marketplace, or I would go to a used bookstore that wasn't really Ark or Goodwill. It wasn't really Second and Charles. And there just wasn't really a place for that. So I kind of want to rethink this, but I do want to have a chart like that in the new journal. My yearly stats page is pretty much going to stay the same. I record the month, the number read, number of pages, print, digital, audio, how many new books acquired, and how many I did not finish that month. And I love my little notes box. That is staying for sure. This is just a fun way to help me realize. So, for example, when I acquired 26 new books in May, normally light bulbs would be going off in my head like Susie, that's a little ridiculous, or 19 books. But the little note helps me realize, oh, May was Mother's Day, May was Teacher Appreciation Week, and I think there was the library sale that they do twice a year is where I acquire a lot of books too, but super, super cheap. And so I see that, and that explains that to me. Something like this too, if I read a lower number than normal, which I don't know why I put that on there because 12 is not really a low number, but I made a note that I read a few chonkers. So in July, there were a lot of thicker books read. At the end of the year, I'll write down the stats for the whole year, but I love this spread. I'll be doing that again. I am going to do an A to Z challenge again. I just think this is so much fun. I am still struggling for XYZ. I might have a Y one for October. Again, I don't care if I don't fill all of this. I may be a little flexible. I still don't think I've ever decided if the author's name has those letters in it or those letters are anywhere in the title. I don't know. I don't really care that much. This is just kind of fun to glue the little covers down. I am going to do a Read the World spread again. I just think this is so much fun to kind of look back on and see where I was reading the world. I've said it before. I'll say it again. This is not in the slightest bit proportionately accurate. The US had to be a little bit bigger so that I could actually color the states, whereas Asia had to be considerably smaller because I didn't want to fill this whole spread with Siberia and never read a book in Siberia. So I did make sure I added New Zealand at the beginning of the year. Some people were very kind and noted that I had left off New Zealand. I think in my head, I was just assuming it was connected down here, and I never realized it wasn't. I'm reading a book right now that takes place in Australia. And I do think, one thing I think I am going to change next year is if a book has multiple settings, I think I'm going to honor all of those in the chart. So right now, this just notes the ones that stood out the most. So where did most of the story take place? But there have been some stories where the character starts off living in this part of the world and then moves to this part of the world. And while most of the book might be in their second location, they do a lot of reflecting about life in the first location. And I think moving forward, not to make it more full, but just as a way of looking back and saying, wow, the characters I've read have really been from all over the world or have traveled and so on. So I think I'm going to do that just to kind of see what that looks like compared to this. I haven't fully decided if I'm doing a book bingo or not yet. It's kind of fun, but I don't know if I care. So I'm still thinking this one over. It would just be a one-page spread again. Read the Rainbow. I may give this one up as well. This has been fun, but again, I don't like the vibe at the end of the year when all I have left are these two. I don't have any colored books of this on my TBR. And so now I'm finding myself subconsciously looking for a book with a purple cover that I might want to read. And I've been using them for audio or digital books because most of my other things I take straight off my physical bookshelf. But I don't know. I don't like looking for a book to fit a category as I'm going through the year. I really just want it to be kind of what naturally happens, but my brain is determined to complete this so that I can see the whole rainbow. So I haven't decided if this will be in there or not yet. Recommendations. I don't think I'm going to put this in my chart or in my journal next year. I haven't decided. So sometimes you guys leave amazing comments and recommend books to me. My problem with this is that if you recommend a book to me, I know how I am, and I know I'm going to read my 26 and 25 or my 25 and 26 first, and my challenge books first, and then whatever's been on my TBR the longest. It might take me a year and a half to get to anything anybody's recommended to me. That's just how the kind of reader I am. And so I don't know if I want a whole page dedicated to that. I also have some ideas of things I do want to try that are new in my journal next year. And so I might have to eliminate stuff like this to make space for that. My book awards page, totally that's staying. I just love these little doors so much. And even though I haven't been able to do anything with it right now, I can't until the end of December when the year is finished. I just kind of love thinking about it as the year goes on and thinking about what books might fit each category. I don't know if I'll do the same awards or not. I might. I don't know. I haven't decided. Then I've got a thriller tropes page. Now, don't look too closely if you don't want any spoilers on these, but I am going to pause here for a minute, so whatever, skip ahead if you need to. I'm not going to do a thriller tropes page again. I feel like if I did another thriller tropes page, it would end up being the same tropes. It is the genre I read the most, and so I can't imagine, like I could change the genre, but I just don't think it's going to have the same impact that this did. So I have a brand new plan I'm super excited about. So my thriller tropes page will not be happening in 2026, but I have something new coming. So stick around because there will be a video about it. I've been working very hard on it, and it's something that you guys can decide to be a part of. And that's what's going to take the place of my thriller tropes page for next year. My classics and DNF pages are definitely going to stay. I'm probably going to do the pocket again. I don't know why this makes me smile, but having the little book covers not glued down and just kind of hanging out, like they're just like little magazines or something hanging out in the pocket. I don't know why, but this just brings me so much joy. I think at the end of the year, there's a chance I may glue some of them up higher, but I don't know. They kind of just sit nice and I don't have to worry about it too much. So I don't know, but I'm probably going to do a pocket. And then I will have another DNF box, kind of like this, where I glue those covers down. And part of it is I just always want to be sure I'm not recommending a book by mistake that I hated. And then finally, I will be doing another new books layout or a new books spread. You can see here what I mean. I did double lines for this. So what happened was my thought at the beginning of 2025, oh, sweet, naive Susie, I thought there's no way I'm going to acquire too many books. I'm not going to let that happen. So I intentionally doubled up the lines so that the chart could not hold as many books. Well, I'm going to show you how well that worked out. So I started filling up the chart, and then I started filling up the chart, and then I started filling up that chart. And before you know it, it's too much. I even gave up doing double lines, and I just started doing single lines because it was getting too crazy. Now we're in November. My birthday is in November. I already have a book shopping date planned with a friend. There's a pretty good chance I will be adding to this list and coming onto the back of this card. So my hope is I don't acquire more than, I won't even say that number, that's embarrassing, but my hope is I won't acquire more than that. But with my birthday coming and with Christmas coming, it's likely to happen. And I think I'm gonna have to really get creative then, because I don't know how to make another door. I guess I'll make one over here. I don't know. So those are all the yearly spreads that are staying the same or changing, and my thoughts behind it. As far as my monthly spreads, those are pretty much going to stay the same. I'm going to have a cover page that says the name of the month and kind of introduces the theme. I'm going to have a page that tells the books that I'm planning to read next off of my TBR. That will always include some books from my 25 and 26, my Storygraph Reading Challenge, or any other challenges I'm doing. Hint, hint. So, and then I usually just pick a book or two off of my TBR that's been sitting there the longest, that came off of my shelfie, and that's how I ensure that this keeps getting colored. So, for example, on this list, my 25 and 25, I had The Quiet People, so I made sure that was on here. I had, what was the other one? The Bee Sting. That was something I was determined to read that year. And then my Storygraph Challenge book was Murder Your Employer. And so I have that here too. Then I just looked on my TBR shelf, on this shelfie, and I just picked 2 other books straight from here, because I know these have been on my TBR the longest. And that was The New Couple in 5B and The Alchemist. And I think, no, I could be wrong. No, The Alchemist was not part of this. And that's kind of how I approached it every month. So any month you look at that, you'll see. This one I only picked 4 books. February's a short month. Peony and Love was off my 25 in 25. The Boy in the Suitcase was my reading challenge book. And then I picked 2 others that had been on the list for a while. That's how I've attacked it every month. That's worked really well for me to keep me moving and taking off my TBR. So that's going to stay. I will still put my reading challenge book, and I will write the prompt, have a place to print the cover of the book, and then a little write-up of what I thought of it. This will probably stick with my reading challenge, although I might add another reading challenge to this, and I may need to double up. So it'll still be a reading challenge spread, but it will cover 2 separate challenges, which means both of those books will now have to be a part of my up next. I hope that made sense. Then I will have a new books chart to write down the new books that I acquire that month. I'm still planning to have some sort of spread for that. My top reads, this is where I honor the books that I loved. So, for example, in my book bracket, The Quiet People was my top read for the month. I loved Bee Sting. I absolutely loved How to Murder Your Employer. This I highly recommend to lots of people. But I only had room for 1 book here. So this is kind of my way of remembering the other books that stood out to me that month. And I'll definitely be doing this again every month. I always have a stats page every month. I'm definitely going to do that again. This is always kind of fun to try to be creative in a different way with how I present my stats. And then I will also, at the end of each month, have a place where I put the covers of the books that I read that month. And so this format I have followed every month throughout 2025, and I'll continue to do that again. Now, they might be in a different order, so I might not have my up next page first every time every month. I haven't quite decided that yet, but up next, reading challenge, new books, top reads, stats, and books read, those are all going to stay the same for next year. And then on the last page of my journal, if I can find it, I'm going to do a final stats page. It's just kind of penciled in here, but my final stats page is going to connect to the original theme of the journal. That way it's kind of bookended by the whole theme. So we've got this theme here and at the very end. And I haven't decided yet what I'm going to do because I've never done it before. So I may do a write-up on how the year went. I may have a spot for the top reads. I really don't know yet. It may just be a decorated page that has the total number of books I read that year. I don't know yet, but that's what this is going to be for. And that's kind of my thinking of what's going to go into my notebook for 2026. Let me know if you have any thoughts or questions. For any pages I did say are coming out of this that will not be in my 2026 notebook, I do have exciting plans, at least they're exciting to me, of some new things that I want to chart and track as I read through 2026. But if you have any comments or questions or suggestions, I have not finalized anything, so I am open to those. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button if you want to follow along for my 2026 reading journal, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Bye.